I want to start off today by asking you to think about a highly specific yet completely universal frustration.
Oh, I know where you're going with this.
Yeah, you probably do. So how many predictions have you heard from, like, Wall Street pundits or Silicon Valley visionaries that just completely spectacularly miss the mark?
Too many to count, honestly.
Right. Think about it. You read the research, you watch these incredibly slick keynotes, you see the confident charts pointing up and to the right.
Always up and to the right.
Exactly. And maybe you even structure your own investments or your career around these models, and then nothing.
Or, at the very least, reality looks absolutely nothing like what they promised.
Right. Like, we have been hearing for a decade now that Bitcoin's price is on this inevitable, mathematically predestined march to $1 million.
Which obviously hasn't happened yet.
Exactly. And we all know Elon Musk has been promising that fully autonomous, unsupervised Tesla full self-driving cars are going to flood the market, next year.
He's literally been saying next year since, what, 2013?
Since 2013, yeah. And right now, today, the whole agentic AI hype machine is churning out these doomsday models claiming AI agents are going to completely replace the entire white-collar human workforce in, like, a matter of months.
It's a massive repeating pattern, isn't it?
It really is.
And the fascinating thing here is that the people making these predictions are not unintelligent.
Right, they're usually geniuses.
Yeah, we aren't talking about internet trolls. These are often brilliant analysts armed with massive amounts of data and processing power.
So why do they get it so wrong?
Oh, man.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. I'm Satosha.
And I'm Satoshi. Well, the research we are looking at today argues there is a fundamental structural flaw in how these analysts view time itself.
Time itself.
Wow.
Okay, and that brings us to the core question we're unpacking today on this deep dive. Why do most open-ended prediction models by these analysts almost always fail?
And to be clear on definitions here, when we say open-ended, we mean a broad model built by an analyst projecting into the open future.
Right, not a simple bet with finite binary options on a prediction market like Polymarket.
Exactly. We're talking about massive systemic projections. Why are these incredibly smart people getting the timeline and the ultimate outcome so incredibly wrong?
Okay, so why? What's the flaw?
Basically, because they are only looking at half the picture.
Half the picture.
Yeah. The research we are diving into completely upends how we fundamentally think about forecasting. It posits that these failed prediction models actually do a fantastic job of mapping what we call the future vector.
The future vector, okay.
Right. They accurately measure the pull of the future, the theoretical potential moving backward toward the present.
But they miss the other half.
Exactly. They are entirely blind to the past vector. They completely miss the colossal accumulated weight of the past that is moving forward with this enormous, undeniable inertia.
Oh, man. So, to put this in perspective for everyone listening, our mission today is to recursively build an understanding of what this research calls the orthogonal manifold of the present.
Which I know sounds like a mouthful of physics jargon.
It sounds incredibly nerdy, honestly.
It does, but we're going to break it down.
We are going to figure out why the present moment you and I are existing in right this very second is actually a chaotic scatter of colliding dimensions.
And I promise you, understanding this changes absolutely everything about how you filter the news and view the future.
So look at it this way. Standard prediction models treat time like drawing a straight line on a piece of blank paper.
Point A to point B.
Right, point A to point B. But reality isn't a blank piece of paper. Reality is more like a massive, chaotic billiard table.
I love this analogy.
Yeah, so you have millions of balls, sources of the future and forces of the past, crashing into each other at weird, skewed angles.
Exactly. The present isn't a straight line.
No, the present is the unpredictable direction the 8-ball shoots off into after it gets hit from 6 different sides at once.
The billiard table is a highly accurate way to visualize it. But, to really grasp why those collisions happen, we first have to totally deconstruct our classical understanding of time.
Okay, let's do it. Break it down.
So the foundational axiom of classical physics, and honestly of deep-seated human cognition, is that time is a linear progression.
Right, because we evolved to think that way.
Exactly, because of our biology. You wake up, the sun rises, you forage, the sun sets. cause and effect moving strictly left to right on a timeline.
Simple. Predictable.
Right. But when you take that one-dimensional, straight-line thinking and try to apply it to complex, high-friction social or technological shifts, it completely shatters.
Because technology doesn't just march neatly forward in a vacuum. It gets, like, pushed, pulled, legislated against, adopted, rejected.
Precisely. To understand the billiard table, we need to clearly define the two main forces, or vectors, at play here.
Okay, lay them out for us.
First, we have the future vector. Think of this as the pull of potentiality.
The pull.
Yeah. It represents mathematical possibilities, unfulfilled market desires, theoretical breakthroughs, and pure logic. Conceptually, it's the future moving backward to meet us.
That's a trippy way to think about it. The future moving backward.
It is, but it makes sense when you look at how people forecast. When an analyst looks at Moore's law or the raw computational scaling of artificial neural networks, they are purely measuring the strength of that future vector.
Okay, so the future vector is the shiny, pristine math. It's the blueprint of what could be, which means the past vector has to be the friction, right?
Exactly right. The past vector is realized history.
Realized history.
Yes. It is the accumulated physical weight of everything that has already happened, actively moving toward the future.
Like what, specifically?
We are talking about concrete infrastructure, deeply entrenched legal codes, human psychology that has evolved over millennia, and bureaucratic systems that strongly resist change.
Right, all the heavy, messy human stuff.
Exactly. You cannot understand the present without understanding the violent collision of these two vectors. The present is literally the exact point where the pristine logic of the future slams into the crushing, messy weight of the past.
But hold on, let me push back on the analyst for a second here.
Sure.
If the past vector is so massive, if it's this literal physical weight of laws and human behavior, how on earth do brilliant visionaries miss it?
That is the million-dollar question.
Right, like, it's one thing to be optimistic, but how can you look at the entirety of human history and just pretend it isn't going to profoundly affect your software deployment?
Well, that points to a profound structural bias.
A structural bias.
Yeah. Visionaries are, by definition, structurally biased to only look at the future vector. They are obsessed with the pure logic of the code or the engineering.
Oh, I see.
A brilliant engineer looks at a system and sees how it operates perfectly in a vacuum.
Because in a simulation, there's no friction.
Right. They are essentially blind to the heavy constraints of human psychology and physical infrastructure because those things are messy. They are illogical.
You can't easily quantify human irrationality in an Excel spreadsheet.
Exactly. To use your billiard analogy, they perfectly calculate the force and angle of the cue ball, but they completely forget that the table is covered in felt, dust, and deep grooves that will alter the path.
They model the strike, but they ignore the friction of the table. That makes total sense.
It really does explain a lot of failed promises.
And we can actually see this exact blindness perfectly illustrated in our 3 case studies of forecasting failure from the research. Let's start with the one that's been driving retail investors crazy for years.
Bitcoin.
Yeah, Bitcoin's mirage of a $1 million price tag.
Wow.
We hear it every single bull market.
Every single one. So let's examine the future vector of Bitcoin first. Analysts look at the pure underlying mathematics of the protocol.
Right.
They use supply-demand dynamics and the programmatic halving cycles, which, as you know, cut the supply of new Bitcoins issued to miners in half every 4 years.
It is the pure, unadulterated math of absolute scarcity.
Exactly. And if you only look at that future vector, a 7-figure price seems like an inevitable mathematical certainty. The logic is just constantly pulling it there.
Right. The math is flawless. The protocol does exactly what it says it will do. Tick-tock, every block.
Yeah.
But the real world isn't made of pure math. It's made of heavily entrenched institutions. So what does the past vector actually look like when it collides with Bitcoin's math? It's not just that banks are old, right?
Yeah.
There's a mechanical friction there.
Oh, absolutely. The research highlights that the drag of the past vector here is astonishingly dense.
Dense. I like that word.
Yeah, yes, it's the massive inertia of existing financial institutions, but mechanically, it's the friction of actual capital flow. Think about the legacy SWIFT system.
Okay, Swift.
It's a trust network built over decades, layered over physical correspondent banking relationships across borders. That is a massive physical and relational weight.
Wow, yeah, you can't just flip a switch and replace that.
No. Add to that thousands of pages of global regulatory frameworks, anti-money laundering laws, and tax codes designed entirely around sovereign fiat currencies.
And the psychology, too. I mean, you can't just undo how humans think about money overnight.
Exactly. You have half a millennium of humans trusting centralized banks, understanding physical cash, and relying on state-backed guarantees.
That is a heavy, slow-moving freight train of economic psychology.
So when the pristine, frictionless math of Bitcoin's future vector crashes into the dense, highly regulated, psychologically sticky reality of global banking, the timeline warps.
It bends.
Yeah, the resultant path isn't immediate global hyper-Bitcoinization. It's a slow, grueling crawl through ETF approvals, regulatory court battles, and extremely slow institutional onboarding.
The cue ball of pure digital scarcity hits the incredibly heavy 8-ball of legacy banking, and it ricochets off into a totally different direction, say, becoming a niche store of value rather than a universal medium of exchange.
Exactly, the scatter.
The scatter. Okay, let's look at Elon Musk and Tesla's full self-driving. We've had literally a decade of delays.
A decade.
He's obviously a brilliant engineer, so what was the pure future vector he was modeling there?
Well, Musk correctly identified the future vector of software improvement and machine learning capability.
The scaling laws.
Right. He looked at the rate of change in computer vision and neural networks and accurately foresaw that the code could theoretically handle the physical task of driving. The logic of the software's trajectory was, broadly speaking, correct.
But again, he ignored the felt on the billiard table.
You really did.
And when you think about the act of driving, the past vector is just unbelievably chaotic. We all know driving isn't just about avoiding static obstacles.
Oh, definitely not. The future vector of pure software assumes a highly rational, predictable environment. But the past vector of human transportation is anything but rational.
It's messy.
So messy, you have 100 years of urban zoning laws that created a physical infrastructure hostile to rigid algorithmic logic.
Potholes, faded lines, weird intersections.
Yes, and you have incredibly intricate tort law and legal liability frameworks like who exactly do you sue when a black box neural network makes a fatal error?
That's a massive legal weight dragging it down.
And most crucially, you have the sheer biological unpredictability of human environments.
Right, the unwritten rules of human driving.
Precisely. A human driver relies heavily on subtle social contracts.
Like the nod at a four-way stop.
Exactly. A nod at a four-way stop. Or eye contact with a pedestrian stepping off the curb in the rain while holding an umbrella that partially obscures their face.
The AI doesn't have a mechanism for the evolutionary social contract of a head nod.
No, it doesn't. That nod represents thousands of years of human behavioral evolution, a massive past vector. The biological chaos completely shatters the neat timeline of software deployment.
Which brings us directly to the current hype cycle, which I think is the most relevant right now. Agentic AI.
Oh, yeah. The hype is everywhere.
The prediction that autonomous AI agents are going to seamlessly integrate into enterprise software and run entire companies on autopilot.
The future vector here is incredibly loud right now. Predictions state that 40% of enterprise applications will feature autonomous agents by 2028.
2028, that's practically tomorrow in corporate years?
It really is. We see doomsday workforce replacement theories based on the rapid, undeniable scaling of large language models. The theoretical potentiality is immense.
But let me guess. The past vector is already dragging it into the mud.
Heavy, heavy mud.
We read the headlines about agents doing incredible things in controlled demos. But what is the actual friction in a real corporation?
The research points to the stark reality that over 80% of current enterprise AI pilots fail.
80%, wow.
Yeah, 80%. And they don't fail because the underlying foundational models aren't smart enough.
Right, the models are brilliant.
They fail because the future vector of a brilliant large language model hits the past vector of legacy corporate infrastructure. We are talking about massive, disorganized data silos.
Oh, I can only imagine the mess.
You have major banks and hospitals still running mission-critical operations on mainframe systems from the 1990s, written in COBOL with totally undocumented code bases.
It's the sheer human labor required to clean up the mess before the AI can even look at it.
Exactly. The friction is deeply ingrained organizational cultures, office politics, and technical path dependency.
Office politics. The AI doesn't know who hates who in the accounting department.
Right. The AI agent might know theoretically how to optimize a supply chain, but it lacks the security clearances, the cross-departmental APIs, and the human trust required to execute the action.
I see.
It is like trying to land a sleek, futuristic spaceship on a runway that is covered in deep mud and bureaucratic red tape. The ship the future is perfect. The landing zone the past is a chaotic mess.
That is such a great visual. The friction is just immense. And honestly, trying to filter out the noise of that pure spaceship hype from the reality of the mud requires stepping way back.
It really does.
It requires ignoring the daily barrage of hot takes and really sinking your teeth into deep, uninterrupted reading of the actual research.
Which is hard to do these days.
It is. Which, by the way, before we get into the actual geometric models of how these vectors collide, this is a perfect time to mention why we built our research website the way we did.
Oh yeah, go for it.
We wanted to offer a pure reading experience to help you filter that noise. There are no trackers watching your mouse movements, no cookies following you around the web trying to sell you things, and absolutely no mandatory logins.
So rare nowadays.
It is just the internet, the way it was originally supposed to be. Pure information.
And the accessibility is amazing.
Exactly. And the best part is, you can take it entirely offline. Thanks to progressive web app technology, you can actually install the Deep Dive website directly from your browser, whether you're on your PC, your tablet, or your smartphone.
That's incredibly useful.
It downloads the framework so you can read this intensive research on the beach or on a long flight, and you don't have to pay for exorbitant airplane Wi-Fi or drain your mobile data.
And it's all open, right?
Yep. Plus, everything is fully open sourced under a Creative Commons license. All the research, the audio files, the visuals. You can take every artifact we produce and use it however you want without even giving us credit. There's a link in the description. Go install it and get offline for a bit.
Highly recommend doing that. Returning to our temporal framework, though, we've established the basic collision, the future hitting the past.
Right. The spaceship hitting the mud.
But the research pushes us to move beyond just visualizing a straight line with two ends. To truly understand the mechanics of the present moment, we have to visualize what it calls the double cone spiraling model.
Okay, let's unpack this double cone model. We are no longer looking at a one-dimensional straight line. How do these cones work?
Imagine every technology, every social movement, or even an individual human life as a pair of cones.
Two cones.
Right. The tips of these two cones are touching exactly at the present moment. The future cone radiates outward and forward.
Like a megaphone pointing forward.
Yes. As it moves away from the present, it gets wider, representing the expanding mathematical possibilities and theoretical breakthroughs, all the things that could happen.
So the future cone is essentially a map of probabilities. The further out you look, the wider the range of possible outcomes.
Precisely.
And touching it at the tip is the past cone, radiating backward into history.
Correct. The past cone radiates backward, and it gets exponentially wider as it encompasses the vast accumulating web of ancestral elements.
Yeah, ancestral elements.
Yeah. It represents the compounding path dependencies, the historical decisions, and the physical laws that have led to this exact singular point in the present.
So the tips of these two huge cones touch the present. But here is where the research forced me to rethink everything.
The alignment issue.
Yes. The ultimate error of forecasting, the reason the analysts get it so wrong, is that they assume these cones align perfectly on a flat horizontal axis.
Like two megaphones pointed straight at each other on a tabletop.
Exactly. But the research says they don't align at all.
Yeah.
Everything actually exists on a skewed trajectory in a high-dimensional space.
This is the concept of the skewed trajectory, and it is the key to the whole puzzle.
Why are they skewed?
Because the forces of the future and the forces of the past are rarely perfectly aligned in their goals, they hit each other at angles. Let's analyze specific orientations to make this concrete without getting bogged down in the literal math.
Thank goodness, no math.
No math. Take artificial intelligence. According to the research, AI currently has a nearly horizontal trajectory with extreme magnitude.
Okay, horizontal meaning flat on the table.
Right. This means the cone of the future and the cone of the past are relatively well aligned. The massive computational potential of the future is slamming directly into massive capital deployment and pre-existing digital infrastructure in the past.
Ah, I see.
It is rapidly moving from future pattern potential right into past grounding reality with very little angular deflection.
But then you compare that to Bitcoin. Bitcoin isn't a straight horizontal line.
Yeah.
Research says it has a skewed trajectory. Let's conceptualize it as like a 20-degree tilt off the horizontal axis.
Exactly. It has high magnitude, meaning there is a lot of force behind it, but it is constantly being dragged downward off that perfect horizontal line by the sheer weight of half a millennium of physical financial history.
The friction bends its trajectory away from pure efficiency.
Yes, the tilt is the friction.
And then there's the perennial prediction of flying cars. The research maps flying cars with a highly skewed trajectory, say, a massive 70-degree angle off the horizontal and, crucially, very low magnitude.
70-degree skew is massive.
Okay, wait, let me stop you there and push back on this.
Go for it.
We are throwing around terms like 20-degree tilt and 70-degree angle and magnitude. How are researchers actually quantifying this? Are they using literal equations to assign a degree to a flying car? Or is this like a conceptual mapping?
That is a crucial distinction to make. The degrees are conceptual representations of friction, not literal geometric measurements.
Okay, that makes more sense.
Yeah.
But how do you measure magnitude in a social or technological construct?
Magnitude, in this framework, is the total accumulated influence of physical and social reality. You measure it by looking at deployed capital, mass human attention, and foundational physics.
Physics.
Right. The past vector for flying cars includes the literal, inescapable law of gravity.
Which is pretty hard to ignore.
Exactly. Gravity is a constant, massive downward force. That is an unbeatable past magnitude. Add to that the heavy socio-political magnitude of global airspace regulations and the physical limitations of battery energy density.
Compared to that massive historical weight, the future vector, the venture capital money in the aerospace engineering is relatively weak.
It lacks the magnitude to force the trajectory back to a horizontal, widely adopted reality. Hence the severe 70-degree skew.
But AI is different.
Very different. AI has captured trillions of dollars in capital and the attention of every major corporation on Earth. Its magnitude is extreme enough to aggressively push back against historical constraints, keeping its trajectory much closer to horizontal.
So if everything has a different magnitude and a different skewed angle, the present moment isn't just one collision.
No, it's millions.
The present is a giant, chaotic billiard table, where millions of these skewed cones are hitting each other simultaneously.
Precisely, which leads us to the physical reality of the now. We need to explore the concept of the orthogonal present.
Let's do it. And let's stick to our billiard table because I think it visualizes the vector math perfectly.
It really does.
If you have an object, say the 8-ball sitting on the table, if I push it purely from the left, it rolls directly to the right.
Simple cause and effect.
Yeah.
Linear time.
Right. But what if you and I push on that 8-ball at the exact same time, but from two different weird angles? You hit it from the top left, I hit it from the bottom left.
The ball doesn't just meet us in the middle.
No. It shoots off in an entirely new, perpendicular direction that neither of us was actually aiming for.
In physics, that resulting path is called a resultant vector. And that new, unexpected, perpendicular direction is what we call orthogonal.
Orthogonal.
Yeah. The research defines the present moment as the ultimate summation of all these colliding past to future and future to past trajectories.
Because all these millions of vectors, technologies, politics, economics, biology, are skewed at different angles and carry different magnitudes.
Right. They do not cleanly compromise. They collide violently, and they scatter.
They scatter. I love that term. The present is a scatter.
It is the twisted metal spinning out from the demolition derby.
Man, that's intense. Because there are billions of actors exerting force, individuals, political systems, financial institutions, algorithms. The instantaneous direction of the present is fundamentally unknowable in real time.
It is entirely mathematically unknowable while you are inside it. This is the root cause of why analysts fail.
Because they're trying to know the unknowable.
Yes, they are only tracking the loud vectors. They track Elon Musk's tweets, or the latest benchmark scores for a large language model, or the Federal Reserve's interest rate announcements.
Those vectors are loud and highly visible.
But they totally miss the heavy vectors, the quiet socio-technical inertia of how 8 billion humans actually live, work, and resist change.
You can't predict where the 8-ball is going to end up by only calculating the speed of one cue ball.
You really can't.
The resultant path is orthogonal to the original strike. The 8-ball is going to bounce off the bumper of regulatory friction, hit the other balls of consumer psychology, and shoot off into a pocket nobody was even looking at.
And what's truly fascinating is the sheer computational difficulty of trying to make sense of that scatter.
Oh, yeah.
Trying to calculate millions of colliding, skewed vectors to find the hidden truth of where the present is actually heading requires an immense amount of processing power, lateral thinking, and deep synthesis.
Which, not to be too meta about it, but trying to find the signal in that massive scatter is exactly the challenge we face every time we put together one of these deep dives.
It's an overwhelming amount of information to process.
It is. For those of you listening who wonder how we actually pull these massive topics into focus, it is entirely a flow of collaborative intelligence.
It really starts with the community.
It starts with your signals. Listeners send us fascinating, dense pieces of research. We take that raw material and we obsess over it. We read it, reread it, and try to find the hidden resultant vector, the core theme that connects the math to the reality.
The synthesis process is rigorous. We unleash Gemini Pro for a 360-degree contextual analysis of the material.
But we don't just accept the first output.
No, never. We chase down AI tangents using highly active prompting, and then we have to tame those tangents to ensure they serve the core narrative. We validate everything across thousands of data points to ensure absolute accuracy.
Right, the AI is the acceleration, but the human obsession is what shapes it. We handcraft and polish the research. We painfully refine every single word, debating the phrasing to compress all that massive orthogonal complexity into a tight, no-fluff audio experience.
And it doesn't stop with the audio.
No, we have to design the sound, the mood, and the visual language.
Okay.
We build short motion graphics using minimalist, clean, high-contrast typography, simple geometric accents, and subtle kinetic text reveals.
Takes a lot of care.
We aim for this calm, premium pacing, using strong hierarchy and negative space to let the ideas breathe. And a huge shout out to Mosaic for that. Mosaic is an absolute game changer when it comes to video production.
Truly.
It allows us to match the visual intelligence perfectly to the audio intelligence without getting bogged down in rendering timelines. It's a vital part of taming the scatter.
It is a process of extreme synthesis. And that word synthesis is crucial as we move to the final and perhaps most profound layer of this research.
Okay, let's go there.
Because if the present moment is this unknowable, chaotic scatter of orthogonal vectors, what does that make history?
Yeah, let's get into segment 5, redefining history. Because in school, we are taught to view history as just a list of stuff that happened.
Dates on a timeline.
Kings, wars, inventions, treaties. A neat linear progression from the past to the present.
The research forces us to completely discard that linear view.
And discard it completely.
History is not a curated list of events. History is simply the recorded, winding track of the resultant present over time.
Wow.
It is the chaos of the scatter, captured in hindsight. You can only accurately map the bizarre, jagged trajectory of the 8-ball after it has finally stopped rolling.
History is the chaos captured in hindsight. That reframes everything.
It does.
And the research actually breaks the entirety of human history down into 3 distinct eras, categorized entirely by the changing magnitude of these temporal vectors.
Let's start with the longest era. The Agrarian Age.
Okay, the Agrarian Age.
For millennia, the Agrarian Age was dominated almost entirely by the past vector. Human existence was governed by the physical reality of the seasons, by the fertility of the land, and by deep, unyielding ancestral traditions.
Right, very little change.
There was almost zero future pull because technological change was incredibly slow, almost imperceptible within a single human lifetime.
So the cones look very lopsided.
Exactly. This extreme historical inertia resulted in a very linear, highly predictable trajectory that lasted for centuries. The cone of the past was massive and heavy. The cone of the future was tiny and weak.
Right. If you were born a farmer in the year 1200, your life was basically the exact same as your great-grandfather's life in the year 1100, and you could safely predict your great-grandson's life in 1300.
The 8-ball was barely moving.
But then we hit the information age.
Yes. The information age represented a sudden, massive explosion in the magnitude of the scientific future-to-past vector.
Electricity, computing.
We harness electricity, advanced computing, global telecommunications, and the internet. Suddenly, the theoretical future was pulling on humanity with incredible compounding force.
And that changed the trajectory.
Drastically. This massive new vector slammed into the slow-moving agrarian and industrial past, causing a sharp, violent orthogonal shift in human reality.
It was a resultant trajectory that literally no one from the Agrarian Age could have possibly predicted or comprehended.
Impossible to predict.
The 8-ball got hit by a sledgehammer and shot off sideways. Which brings us to, right now, the moment we are currently living in,
The research refers to the current era as the quantum or AI age.
the AI age.
And it describes our present moment as a devastating collision of extreme magnitude vectors from both directions simultaneously.
So we have the heaviest past vectors humanity has ever accumulated, deeply entrenched global supply chains, massive interconnected governments, rigid geopolitical alliances, and 8 billion people with ingrained, highly manipulated psychological habits.
That is an immense weight.
And that immense weight is colliding head-on with the strongest, fastest future vectors humanity has ever generated: artificial general intelligence, quantum computing, synthetic biology, and decentralized finance.
Exactly. This unprecedented collision creates what the research terms a hyper-orthogonal present.
Hyper-orthogonal.
Because both the past and the future have extreme magnitude, they don't overpower one another cleanly. They shatter against each other.
They shatter.
The angles of scatter are sharper, more frequent, and more violent than at any point in recorded history.
Is this why everything feels so incredibly chaotic right now? I feel like everyone I talk to, regardless of their profession, their background, or their politics, just feels a deep underlying sense that the world is fundamentally unpredictable right now.
We all feel it.
We all feel the friction. Is it quite literally because of this hyper-orthogonal scatter?
It is exactly because of that. We are living inside a high-dimensional temporal collision.
A temporal collision.
The pull of accelerating future technology and the drag of collapsing or resisting historical institutions have never been heavier, and they have never been moving faster.
That makes so much sense.
When a massive future vector hits a massive past vector, the resultant reality is profoundly disorienting to the human mind, which, as we discussed, evolved to expect linear cause and effect.
We just aren't built for it.
We cannot mathematically predict the outcome. We can only physically experience the scatter.
That is an incredibly powerful way to understand the modern world. Okay, we have covered a massive amount of conceptual ground today. Let's take a breath and recap the core journey of this deep dive.
A lot to digest.
We started by tearing down the illusion of classical linear time. We realized that we don't live on a simple 1D straight line, marching neatly from yesterday into tomorrow.
No, we don't.
Instead, we exist at the violent convergence of millions of skewed trajectories. The pristine logical math of the future vector, is constantly crashing into the heavy, messy biological freight train of the past.
And that relentless collision creates the present moment.
Right.
The now is an orthogonal scatter, a resultant trajectory that pushes reality in bizarre, unpredictable directions that no single analyst, model, or visionary could ever perfectly foresee.
So this brings us to the ultimate practical question for you, the listener. The next time you open a newsletter or watch a keynote and you see a massive headline with a visionary making a bold, mathematically guaranteed claim about what the world will look like in exactly 5 years.
Should you believe them?
Exactly. Should you believe the models of the Wall Street pundits? Or should you trust your own gut feeling?
If we follow the logic of the research, you should absolutely trust your instincts.
Your instincts.
Your lived present is located firmly within your very own personal vectors of past and future. Visionaries might be highly attuned to sensing the future's mathematical pull, but your lived daily experience fundamentally understands the friction of the past.
Because you live it.
You know how hard it is to change your own habits, let alone the habits of 8 billion people. You feel the resistance. You feel the friction.
Trust your friction. Honestly, that might be the most valuable takeaway from all this vector math.
I agree completely.
If you enjoyed this rigorous journey into the architecture of time, prediction, and the orthogonal present, please take a second to subscribe wherever you are listening right now.
Please do.
Whether you are on Spotify, YouTube Music, Apple Podcasts, watching the visuals on YouTube, or using value-for-value podcasting platforms like Fountain.fm, subscribing is the absolute best way to make sure you catch every single deep dive as we continue to map the scatter.
We also want to deeply invite you to actively participate in this synthesis process.
Send us your stuff.
Please continue to share rigorous resources, white papers, and research with us for future explorations. Why do we constantly ask for your sources? Because the best, most profound ideas do not come from us sitting in a vacuum.
They really don't.
They emerge when your unique curiosity meets our synthesis process.
That is exactly it. We have a guiding mantra here in one line. Your signals, our synthesis, AI acceleration, human obsession, distilled insight.
That is the mission.
That is the flow of collaborative intelligence. We want to build a true symbiosis of artificial and natural intelligence alongside you.
Particularly if you are listening right now and you have deep applied expertise in temporal forecasting, behavioral economics, complex systems analysis, or even high-level physics, please reach out.
We want to hear how you personally view and navigate the scatter.
I want to leave you with a final provocative thought to mull over as you go about your day.
Let's hear it.
If the present moment truly is an unplannable resultant of millions of collisions, perhaps our ultimate goal as individuals and as a society isn't to perfectly predict the future at all.
What should it be then?
Perhaps the real goal is to build systems, financial, social, and personal, that are simply resilient enough to survive the orthogonal scatter, no matter which direction it violently shoots off into.
Wow. Stop trying to calculate the exact path of the 8-ball and just focus on building a much stronger table. See you on the next deep dive. I'm Satosha.
And I'm Satoshi.